Rider with you.
Hey YouTube, Awesome Rider here. Welcome to my second ThreeZero figure review for Lord Drakkon from Mighty Morphin Power Rangers, or more specifically, the Mighty Morphin Power Rangers comic. As mentioned in my previous review, if you didn't see it, this is kind of a higher-end collectible series, sort of cousins of the idea of like a Hot Toys or Medicom figure. These like 12-inch articulated figures that are meant to look fairly realistic to the show. That they're very pricey though, especially this one is one of the more expensive ones. I was very wary of this line just because it's so expensive, so I sort of picked out my favorite designs to give the line a look. White Ranger didn't come off so good. Will Drakkon come off better? Well, let's see. Again, just to quickly go over some of the basics, the accessories. He has several different hands he comes with, as you can see in him right now. I don't know why I said in him, I'm very sorry about that. On him right now, he has just the sort of relaxed open hands. Then he includes a variety of different hands. You have hands for holding and playing the Dragon Dagger, which he has. Right here you can see these are the holding hands, and these are the ones specifically for like holding the Dragon Dagger, and then your standard closed fists. And he does include the Dragon Dagger, which just like Saba in the White Ranger figure, I think looks excellent. That's definitely an area they didn't slouch on. I think it's got some really exquisite details, and it looks great overall. I almost missed it and thought they forgot to include it because they store it on the back of the figure for some reason, so it's kind of hard to find, so just be aware of that. It's on the packaging, but I honestly thought they forgot to include it because of where it is. But they do include Saba here, which is just as good as the one included in the regular White Ranger. That's definitely not one of my complaints. It's very nicely detailed, and you even have the extended mode there. That makes the world a difference. It just seems so minor, but it's overall just a really nice accessory. And it is nice that they include both, since some things don't. Like, I don't think the Lightning Collection one did, for whatever reason. Because I highlighted it in the other review, I know a lot of people don't always like this, but I do appreciate the really nice looking box. You know, if you're someone that collects or keeps your boxes or displays them or whatever, they're just overall nice looking. Now, my review for the White Ranger didn't fare so well because it had its strong points, but overall I felt it had a lot of cheap and odd qualities that stopped it from feeling worth it for the price. Now, is it the same here? I mean, yes and no. I have to say, overall, look-wise, for me, this guy just looks better. He looks more impressive, especially from up here. I just think it looks a little bit more worth the money if you're just looking at it on display. So I'm more visually pleased with it, which is really nice. And so let's start with the positives then. I think the head sculpt looks really great. I think one of the strongest head sculpts for Drakkon. This is obviously one, even though it's a comic one, we do have live-action reference from the live-action trailer, and I think the proportions of it look overall really nice. The gold paint shines really well. The red visor looks really nice. It's got almost a nice little shine to it. It contrasts really nicely. Just really pleased with it. I think that the visor, look at this visor here, guys. The chest armor looks great. I think that they did a really good job, just like with White Rangers, with the gold looking nice and shiny, but not too shiny cheap. The sort of finish on the green makes it look nice and balanced. The symbol here looks really good. Same thing for the gold paint on the gauntlets and the leg gauntlets, or shin, what do you call those? Armor? Shin pads? Socks. I think the belt looks a little bit better too, because I mean, you still have this cheap feeling thing here. I feel that this here and the holster, the vibe of it combined with this, not the thighs, but the material here, make it feel like one of those cheap Power Rangers dolls from the 90s. But the nice detail on the Morpher just makes it look a little bit less cheap for me overall. Now the feel here of the material does look a little bit silver, or I guess the look rather, excuse me, still looks a little bit silver, especially compared to this background. And I don't know if the live action suit had a bit of a shine. I mentioned how White Rangers could some have a pearly shine, but it definitely leans a little more towards silver. It definitely still stands out and like clashes here with the white, but it doesn't bother me quite as much with him. I think primarily because he's not a live action suit I'm used to seeing a lot, so I can sort of fudge it in my head a little bit. Not to mention he's got a little bit more going on up here, so I think you're more distracted. And you know, even though he is a White Ranger, I feel like that isn't a mean feature. My point is, I feel it still could look a little more White Ranger-y, to use a really technical term, but it doesn't bother me as much. I still feel like the leg proportions on this are a little bit wonky. I don't know why I keep doing this. It's just weird. At least give the other one some attention, but my point is I think that the leg proportions are just a little bit off. It makes them look a little bit ill-proportioned and lanky in the legs. Now, some of my other problems I had with the White Ranger figure was a cheap feeling with the articulation. Now, he does have the same articulation as the White Ranger. He has the nice ball joint here, good all-around motion, double elbow joint. Now, unfortunately, for the arms in particular on this one, he feels even looser. I mentioned on my White Ranger that it wasn't loose like he's going to flop around, but it felt like that kind of loose loose where the longer you own it, it's going to become really loose over time. And this one in particular, the arms on him feel extremely loose. Like this is just so easy to move. And it's not like a huge deal, but it's such an expensive figure. It's weird how fragile it feels to me, at least in my opinion. And then you have the same thing with the hands. When you switch them out, you have to pull out these little things and switch them out yourself. That seems like a small nitpick, but it's kind of a pain, and I wish that it just came with its own hinges on all of them for such an expensive figure. It feels weird having to be cutting the corners yourself. You got the same nice ball joint articulation here down on the Barbie. I don't know why that happened. Oh, and look, this problem persists. The feet come off really easily, but you got the nice knee joint there. And unfortunately, you do still have that problem of him looking like he just got in a horrible accident. Again, you all right? When you move these here, when you bend these here, it does look weird. Like, it looks kind of like Woody, where he doesn't have the articulation when he technically has, like, you know, just stuffing there. But it looks off. You know, I wish that looked more natural there. These are a little bit more clicky there, but you do get the same articulation and the same ball joint here. Unfortunately, this was a problem I highlighted in my White Ranger figure review, is that the joints or the ball joints on the feet are extremely loose. This happened, unfortunately, on both of these figures. I don't know if other people have experienced this problem with any of the others, the main Rangers or anything like that, but this was definitely my biggest problem, is that these come off and then these slide off. So with both of them, like, this would pop off and then these would fall off like immediately, and it just leads to a very cheap feeling I feel I shouldn't have with figures of these quality. You do also have the chest and waist articulation here, as highlighted before, and the nice ball joint here, and you do have that little bit here, which it gets better over time, but when you first get it, because you do have the cloth on here, when you bend the head down, it will bounce back a little bit because the cloth pulls it back. That's not like a huge detail, but it's just something I noticed. This looks like the most inexperienced karate pose of all time. Let me just really quickly bring them next to... Oh, the shoe fell off again. Look, I lost my shoe. But as I was trying to say before I was rudely interrupted by poor quality, just get on there. Go in your home. Go in your home. Apologize about that. As I was saying before I was rudely interrupted twice by poor quality and my own shenanigans, let me just get them both in here just to get a side-by-side comparison. All right, so here's both the ones I own side-by-side. I mean, they're not absolutely awful looking. They're just a little cheaper and more awkward than I would like for the price. I will say that overall, look-wise, Drakkon impresses me more. Unfortunately, he still has some of those cheap feelings that really do bother me for a figure of this price, especially since Drakkon is more expensive. I think that the original 6, or at least the original 5, are the cheapest. White Ranger goes up in price. He goes up even further in price, and I think the upcoming Ranger Slayer goes up further in price. So I think even if I was spending the $100 standard price of the regular figures, I would still be disappointed by how cheap they feel for the price. Again, I will say Drakkon overall looks much better and looks a little bit closer to the way I was hoping it would look for such a high-priced collectible, but still, for the price, it's disappointing. I would say if I was just going off of the general quality look, I would recommend Drakkon over White Ranger, but either one I would not recommend at the price. Like I said in my White Ranger review, I can only recommend these personally if there's a nice sale and you absolutely have your heart set on this style of figure. Like if there's a good sale on them and you really want this, I would recommend getting Drakkon. I think he overall looks better than White Ranger and has less issues for me, but I still can't recommend them at retail. And as I mentioned at the end of my White Ranger review as well, unless you really have your heart set on this style of figure, I would recommend something else. I think that it's a different scale, but the Lightning Collection figure for Drakkon is solid, and there is also the PCS collectible statues, which, while not the same size and not articulated, nice kind of quote-unquote higher-end collectible feeling pieces that are a cheaper price, and they frequently go on sale. And there is both a White Ranger and a Drakkon available, and lots of MMPR options. So if you're in the market for something that's kind of a collectible looking piece compared to a standard action figure, I would recommend checking out the PCS collectible statues over this. These aren't absolutely awful, but they just have too many issues to recommend for the price, and it's very disappointing, especially when you get the even more expensive ones like this, and he's falling apart like a Turbo Man doll at a cheap knockoff factory. But that's about it for this one, guys. Until next time, like, comment, subscribe, and climb the steps and ring that bell so notifications for my videos. Dawson Ryder, signing out.